Hey guys, Dan here. I want to say, first of all, congratulations on finishing the challenge. It's a big deal. It's a really great step toward establishing a meditation habit or reinvigorating a habit or booting one up or encouraging other people in your life gently to do it with you. So let's just take a moment to feel good about that. And while we're feeling good, let's bring in my friend Sebene Selassie, who, for this audience, needs no introduction. She was an integral part of the challenge. Hey, Seb.
Hey Dan, congratulations everyone.
So I want you to, while we're encouraging people to feel good, I can list you as an ally in this. Wh- I suspect there are some type A folks out there who are here sheepishly thinking, well, I'm here, I finished the challenge, but I didn't actually do every day. How do you speak to that mentality?
Well, first of all, I did the challenge and I didn't do every day either. I think I missed 2 or 3 days. And, that's really part of the practice, just like with anything else. We're never going to be perfect at it. And perfect is the enemy of good, and even sometimes great. So to really acknowledge what we did accomplish and know that we did more than we didn't.
I got more than any other challenge we've ever done. I got so much feedback from people, and a huge theme that I was seeing in the feedback was it was so powerful to do this with other people, to be able to track people's meditation, to know they were doing the same thing I was doing. Why is that so resonant?
You know, most of us are not autodidacts. Most of us learn best in community, and having that sense of accountability and support really benefits the majority of us for any new habit that we're trying to create or something that we're trying to learn. That's why we go to teachers. That's why we learn in community and classrooms. And I did the challenge with some family members and friends and got the same feedback that, when you get the message that someone has just meditated, it encourages you for your practice or makes you feel good and happy for them.
Yeah, I sometimes refer to this as the HOV lane effect, or I've seen a bumper sticker. I saw a bumper sticker once. I believe it was in the lab run by Dr. Judd Brewer, who's also pretty familiar to folks in the TPH universe, neuroscientist. And I saw a bumper sticker in his lab that said, "Enlightenment is a team sport." So it's there's really something to this. So while we're all here as a team, let me just give you a sense of how this thing's going to go. We've got 30 minutes, and we're going to start with a brief meditation. We figured that we wouldn't force a long meditation on you because we didn't know if the appropriate prize for having completed a meditation challenge would be more meditation. So we'll do a brief meditation, although you're free to do more on your own the rest of the day. And then Seb and I are going to chat for a little bit, and then we're going to take your questions. So if you have questions, you can submit them, and Seb and I will field them toward the end. But having said all that, Seb, do you want to guide us for a couple minutes just to settle in?
Yeah, sure. And I'm not going to give too much guidance, really encourage people to use some of the techniques that you learned in the challenge, what feels comfortable for you. But you can just begin by feeling your body right here. And you might want to close your eyes or bring your eyes away from the screen in front of you. And let's just go inwards just for a couple of minutes, feeling the body, feeling the breath, bringing awareness to our thoughts, and simply being in the present moment. Perhaps noticing any tendency to want something to happen or think that this is supposed to go a certain way. Just coming back to awareness for another minute or so. And opening your eyes when you're ready, coming back to the screen and this show.
Thank you. Just a reminder to folks that Seb and I will chat for a little bit here about some themes that we want to explore, but to encourage you to submit questions because we'll happily answer them. So I think, I'm guessing, but I think something on the mind of a lot of people who completed the challenge is what now? And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how to, now that we have this practice kind of at least temporarily booted up in our lives, how do we integrate it into our lives? How do we live in a more meditative way, mindful way?
Yeah. I like to remind myself and others that we're not meditating to become good meditators. That's not the point of meditation. We're really meditating so that we can bring more awareness into our lives. So we can see how this type of awareness of being aware of the body and the breath and our thoughts show up for us day to day when we're in conversation, when we're in relationship, in work, or with our family and our lives. So bringing these same tools of being aware of the mind, of our thoughts, of what might be running us unconsciously, or in terms of our habits and patterns, we can start being aware of that. I was thinking about sort of, how you transition from a challenge into a daily practice of this. And one of the things that's different about a challenge than maybe a daily practice is that you're doing a different type of meditation every day. And for folks who are newer to this, they might want to experiment with trying one kind of meditation for a week, 2 weeks, or longer, just to see how deepening in one practice can help us build a particular way of being with our experience, watching our minds, watching our bodies. So being with the breath for a week, or doing a loving kindness practice for 5 days straight, something like that.
You you talked about meditation post challenge. I suspect there may be people who are worried about falling off the wagon now that there is no challenge. We know, and we've talked about a lot in so many areas of the TPH universe, the podcast, books, et cetera, how habit formation is so diabolically difficult for people. So, any advice in terms of keeping it going?
Yes, if you did benefit from that support and accountability, uh, building that in somehow. So even finding one friend who's also trying to meditate and creating some sort of check-in system, texting each other every day after you've meditated. One person in my family, I could always see that they were doing the meditation at like 11:30 p.m. Sort of trying to get it in before the end of the day. So having that support, and it actually doesn't even need to be someone who's also meditating. You might choose someone to say, "Look, I want to check in with you every day just to make sure that I've meditated." Building a community of meditation practitioners or finding a community is helpful. So finding a daily practice, and there are many, many teachers now that we're still in quarantine and dealing with this pandemic who are teaching online, teaching on Instagram, making offerings really freely available.
I've really found, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I've really found that there's something pretty unique about having friendships where, or any relationship, it can be even with a family member, where meditation is part of it. The friends I've made in the meditation world, and I would put you firmly into this category, that those are different and interesting friendships. I can't quite put my finger on why, but I've really noticed that. Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, definitely. There's something about the honesty and vulnerability that's required of a practice that has you look at all of your patterning and basically not run away screaming, but staying with it and being honest about that and being willing to share it. I've really appreciated how vulnerable you are on the podcast and on TPH in general, of just sharing, your foibles and difficulties and challenges, your patterning, your conditioning, your family history, and all of that comes up in practice. And so when we get comfortable sharing that, we look for others who are also comfortable with that.
Yeah. So on this subject, thank you for that. On this subject of keeping it going, I imagine there are also people who are thinking, yeah, I'm not so worried per se about whether I'm going to be able to keep the habit up, but I am intrigued by the notion of going deeper. What in your mind, what would that look like?
For me, going deeper involved a few things. One was making my practice deeper, so longer, more consistent, building in not just longer daily meditation practice, but also more intensive periods of practice, whether that's a day long or retreat. And even though, we're in quarantine, most retreat centers are closed, there are a lot of offerings online as well to do longer retreats. Courses are really helpful. So the courses that are in the app are great, where you sort of dive into a particular topic or a particular practice in a deeper way. And then, eventually, finding a teacher or a community, people to work with, so that you have some feedback and kind of reflection on your practice.
I have another idea if people want to go deeper. Seb's going to be mad at me for saying this, but right on my desk, I have a copy of Sebene Slassy's new book called You Belong, available for pre-order right now. And Seb will be on the 10% Happier podcast talking about this amazing book very soon. So this is a great way to go deeper. Sorry, Seb. I know you don't like self-promotion, but I like doing it for you.
Thank you,
Uh,
Dan.
my pleasure. Um, Anything else? Well, actually, before I ask that rather broad question, let me ask a little bit more specific question. One other thing that I got a ton of feedback on, and I really share the sentiment that I heard expressed to me, was that the meditation you led toward the end of the challenge on unconscious bias was really one of the most impactful and skillful guided meditations I have ever heard. Um, can you talk a little bit about, for those who might have missed it, what your goal was in that meditation and what you're hoping people took away from it?
Oh, thank you for the kind words about it. Sometimes we use this image of an iceberg, that the part of the iceberg we see is actually just a small amount, that most of an iceberg is submerged and we don't see it. And we talk about our meditation practice as sort of starting to be able to feel, know, experience the rest of that iceberg. But we talk about it in terms of our personal psychological material. You start to notice the patterning of your childhood, or things that about your personality. But what's also submerged is the unconscious material of our culture, like the things that we've absorbed, including all the biases and unconscious racism and sexism and ableism and all of the isms that also become part of our habit patterns, but we can't see them. So meditation starts to kind of reveal the rest of the iceberg to us. And uh, I believe that's a really powerful and important process for really waking up, for finding the freedom that meditation offers.
Yeah, and a, a really amazing aspect of your technique here is you can see what's beneath the tip of the iceberg, but it's important to do it without adding on guilt and shame and to do it with the understanding, as you've articulated already, and I've heard you articulate many times in the past, with the understanding that you are not thinking your thoughts, that's the quote you often point to. You're not thinking your thoughts, you're thinking the culture's thoughts.
Yeah, so these thoughts, these patterns are not our fault, but they are our responsibility.
Well said. Okay, so as promised, it's time to take some questions from the audience, and they're already coming in. So I'm going to start with Michael. By the way, these questions are being texted to me by Jess. I don't know if those of you who were regular viewers of TPH Live, which we did for the first couple of months of the pandemic, may remember Jess, who produced those shows and is back on this one. So Jess is texting me my first message. Also Amy. I should mention Amy is also curating. Jess and Amy were the two key players in TPH Live behind the scenes. So Jess and Amy are sending me these questions. First one is from Michael, and it says, and I'm quoting here, I'm a pharmacist in Toronto, busy setting, 3 or 4 staff running the chaos usually. Any suggestion for how to take mindfulness/meditation breaks amidst this 12-hour workday too? Seb, thoughts from Michael?
Yeah, we sometimes, or let's say I sometimes assume that we're all sort of at home, but it's not true. There are many, many people still as busy as ever, if not more. And so just to acknowledge that challenge of trying to build a practice in the midst of that. I think that besides taking the actual break of the 10 minutes or 5 minutes you can find to sort of close your eyes and go inwards and give yourself a little bit of peace and calm, you can build awareness into anything. So feeling your feet on the floor. And the hardest part is to remember. So the original Pali word, sati, that we translated as mindfulness, its connotation, one of its many connotations is remembering. So that's actually the hardest part. It's not the practice itself. It's pretty simple. It's remembering to do the practice in our daily life. So even in a moment of stress, you can remember that your feet are touching the floor or your seat is in a chair, and coming back to the body, connecting. Sometimes people like to have particular actions that they use as reminders, like every time you open a door, or every time you go to fill up your water bottle or get tea, that will be your kind of reminder bell for mindfulness. And then you just bring your full awareness to whatever you're doing, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, really feeling it all.
Yeah, those are good. And I've never worked as a pharmacist, but I've observed from afar when standing in line at the pharmacy. And it seems like there are some activities there that do require a lot of attention, like counting the pills and scraping them off into the jar or whatever. So those may be moments too. Well, while you're having to focus, you can add in the metacognition of knowing that you're knowing. So following up now with another question. This one's from Emma Jordan, and I'm quoting here. I have a question. How do I add in more self-compassion to my daily practice to give myself some comfort in this unsettling and isolating time? Thank you so, so much. Seb, what say you?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question, because right there's already an awareness. A lot of us, don't even think of self-compassion. We sort of assume that we should be worried about everyone else, caring about all the chaos and suffering in the world. But I think Emma's identifying that actually it has to start here. So there are actual formal self-compassion practices that are very helpful for building up that habit of remembering. And that's a great way beyond just sort of putting your hand on your heart or reminding yourself to be kind to yourself in those moments of self-judgment or criticism. To actually build up the muscle of self-compassion through formal practice is really helpful.
And on a more cognitive layer, something that's been helpful for me, I do a lot of the formal compassion and self-compassion practices. But something I heard Jack Kornfield say, the great meditation teacher Jack Kornfield, sometimes I notice patterns running in my own mind that that have historically brought me a lot of shame and self-flagellation. I would say most prominently a kind of selfishness. And I have found it really useful in the moments when I notice that, just to remind myself, well, this is just, as Jack says, the organism trying to protect itself. This is some ancient pattern I injected into me by the culture or my parents or whatever, and fighting with it is not nearly as helpful as, blowing it a kiss and letting it go on its way.
Yeah, beautiful.
This next question is I don't know. Warres one is the handle. WARRES one. My question is, how do I avoid resenting my loved ones making noise, clanking around when I'm trying to focus and calm down? I love this. I get so agitated, I feel like I'm ruining the whole process.
Um, yeah, thank you for that. My equivalent is sirens, Cardi B being blasted down the street, horns. So I'm with you there, and it's a practice to really start to experience what we find disturbing around us, not as noise but as sound. There can be this idea, and there's a lot of benefit to having a peaceful, calm, quiet surrounding. That's why retreat centers are often in these natural, peaceful spots. There's a lot of benefit and healing that can come from that. And there's also a lot of benefit that can come from being surrounded by what seems difficult, but is actually building up our resilience. There's a story about a Tibetan teacher that I heard from my friend Martin Aylward, and it was his first time. There's some horns right there. Um, it was his first time in a big city, and he was looking out the hotel window, and he just saw all this traffic, and he said, "Oh, this is very bad for meditation practice." He said, "But it's very good for Dharma practice." He's basically saying that, this challenge, what seems like an obstacle, is actually can be a window into real freedom. Because if we always need a specific environment, a specific kind of experience to feel free, to feel peaceful, then it's all going to go to crap. Can I say that?
Yeah.
If we're confronted with life, basically, with uh, difficulties in our relationships, with challenges at work, with noise on the street or in the world. So, you could thank your family, actually.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that was a huge turning point for me in my practice when quote unquote annoying or unpleasant things would arise in my practice. Instead of just getting focused on how angry I am at the offender, which of course I still do, to get better at, for an increasing percentage of those occasions, to use it as like a gym or a dojo where I'm practicing being cool, seeing clearly the annoyance and anger that's arising and being cool with it, not feeding it or fighting it, just but being interested in, and if I can, somewhat warm vis-a-vis the aforementioned emotion, so that when it comes up off the cushion in quote unquote real life, I can do the same thing and not do a bunch of stuff that I regret.
Yeah,
Kate,
Joseph Goldstein. Oh, sorry.
no, no,
He
no, you
has
go,
this
please.
great. He has this great. Well, I first heard it from him. This saying that it's not what's happening that matters, but our relationship to it. And we can have this idea that something specific is supposed to happen in the practice, that it's supposed to be peaceful. We're not supposed to have any thoughts. Good luck with that. That they're not supposed to be any disturbances. But the ease is actually in relationship to whatever is happening, and we're cultivating that.
Yeah, I think it was John Kabat-Zinn, same generation of teachers as Joseph, or maybe slightly younger, but who said something to the effect of, meditation isn't about feeling a certain way. It's about feeling whatever you feel clearly, so that those emotions don't own you as much. And
Mm.
I think that is one of the big key early lessons. So Katie Weimer writes, I recently lost my job. I'm sorry to hear that, Katie. And on top of all the other stress and new stress brought about with job loss, I find I'm taking everything so personally. Any tips for removing myself?
Well, I'm sorry too, Katie. And, the uncertainty that we're all feeling in general in this time is really compounded by something like job loss, which even in more normal times is can be quite traumatic and a real difficulty. And so I just really encourage you to take care of yourself in the ways that you need, find the support. Meditation can be part of that, but especially when there's uncertainty about finances or your future in any way, and maybe even living circumstances, it's really important to make sure that we're finding also external support for what we're going through. But I'm not quite sure what you mean by removing yourself, but it might be that you're feeling really strong emotions, and we don't usually want to feel difficult emotions. So finding practices that really allow you to build that self-care and self-compassion, doing self-metta or self-compassion practices in this time, I think would be really key for anyone going through job loss or difficulties, and all of us going through this kind of collective challenge of the moment.
Well said. Let's do one last, at least one more question here. This is from Jessica. She writes, "I really enjoyed the 21-day challenge. Do you have any tips to share for when meditation brings out something that has been buried deep inside that can shake you up and make you feel overwhelmed?"
Yeah, I think meditation trains us for exactly that. And there are very few of us that are not going to experience some element of overwhelm in our lifetime. So we're training, in fact, to be prepared for that. So I would say it's similar to what we were talking about just a moment ago of building up these practices of first awareness, and not pushing away and not thinking there's a mistake or a problem with feeling strong emotions or feeling overwhelmed. And then a lot of kindness and care with what's arising. We've talked about before, you and I, Dan, about the attentional quality of meditation and mindfulness. So building awareness of what's happening, and that really has to be equally balanced out with this caring quality, this kindness. So we're not just having kind of a cold, hard awareness of what's there, but we're meeting it with this real gentle allowing that is kind, that's compassionate, and that also takes practice.
And I would also say that when there's stuff that's coming up from your personal history, and I just want to, this is one of those times where I do feel important to give the caveat that I'm neither a trained meditation teacher the way Seb is, nor am I a mental health professional. But my understanding, having been in this world for a while, if things are coming up that are really powerful, perhaps even traumatic, this may be a good time to also pair your meditation practice with psychotherapy. I think it's cool to do that anytime. I do that, but I do think, in particular, if there's trauma being brought up, it might be nice to kind of pair this with a mental health professional. And finally, I know I said one more, but we got a great one here from Paul. Can you pass on some tips for setting daily intentions? Looking for some help with setting that routine. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, I find just naming what it is that I'd like to build as a habit. So if it's practice that, I want to practice a certain number of minutes a day or at a certain time every day, I think naming that aloud to oneself, writing it down, keeping a log in your journal or in your calendar, electronic calendar, again, having accountability, all of those are really helpful. And then also setting the attention for the quality, I think helps supports that. So, that you want to do that with, a sense of kind of awareness and determination, but also kindness and compassion, and not beating oneself up when inevitably you fall off or miss a day, or maybe need to start over again. But I'd love to hear what's worked for you, Dan.
I was just thinking about that. So it's been a kind of multi-stage process when it comes to intentions. When I first encountered this notion of setting intentions, it struck me as the same kind of vague boilerplate spirituality that would be accompanied with like a vision board or like a mindfulness coloring book or something like that. I just thought it was just kind of empty. But of course, in the deeper I've been able to dive into Buddhism, you see that there's so much of an influence placed on the quality of your intention, your motivation, and I started to think about that in particular as it relates to my work with 10% Happier, because I could notice that, I've had this cognitive dissonance many times of people coming up and saying, thank you for your work. And I think to myself, I'm not really doing it for you. There's a lot of selfishness in there. I'm doing it because I'm trying to figure this stuff out for myself, or I'm doing it because I want our business or whatever book I'm working on to be successful. And that didn't feel good. And I really wanted to bring out the sort of better angels of my motivational nature. And so I got interested in intention, and then I tried to start setting intentions first thing in the morning, because I thought I had heard from many people, including this great nun Thubten Chodron, that was a really powerful way to start the day. And then I just couldn't get my act together to do it. I would just find myself a couple hours into the day and hadn't done it. And only recently have I really actually been most days remembering to do it when I'm lying in bed before I, start motivating for the day. And I've come up with a clunky, not sort of super not mellifluous, and pretty cheesy motivation that I try to say to myself first thing in the morning, which is something to the effect of, my goal is to do work that helps people be happier, and in the process, to have really great relationships with everybody I come in contact with. And that I find is I notice that the deeper I get into having that habit, the more I'm coming back to it as a touchstone while I'm writing my next book. And I could get lost in thoughts about like, oh, how is this going to be received? And is it going to be a good book? And if I can come back to, even for a nanosecond, well, is this going to help somebody? It burns cleaner as a motivation, I've noticed.
Yeah, and that's so related to the practice of dedicating our practice to the benefit of all beings without exception. That's something that we do in our Dharma communities regularly, and that's so tied. I love the way you did that. I also now know I'm going to get you a mindfulness coloring book.
I really shouldn't have said that. Hey, Seb, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for being such a huge part of the challenge. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, everyone. Congratulations again.
Oh, since Seb is going to torture me with a mindfulness coloring book, I'm going to torture her again. Check out her new book. It's really good, and it's coming out soon. It's called You Belong. Seb, you're the best. And I want to remind everybody as we leave, if you're looking to go deeper, and I'm sorry for the shameless plug here, but we do have incredible courses on the 10% Happier app that we've spent tons and tons and tons of time working with great meditation teachers, including Sebene, and also great world-class experts, scientists, to craft. So we've got courses on stress, on compassion, a beginner course on meditation, relationships, working with powerful emotions, tons and tons of courses that are really like our signature product. So I would recommend, as a way to deepen your practice, to go check those out. Thank you, everybody, again, for tuning in for this. Congratulations on finishing the challenge, and have a great rest of your day.